Hello viewers and welcome to our Top Notch Productions. We have been analyzing the set books, and as you're aware, the set books that we have been analyzing are Fathers of Nations, The Samaritan, and The Silent Song. And we have dealt with the characters, and we have seen the relationships of these characters in bringing out the themes that the writer would like to put across. We have a program today, and in our program today we'll be trying to demystify Agda, AGDA, that is Agency for Governance and Development in Africa. We'll also be trying to demystify Path Alpha and also Way Omega, so that we put them in perspective, because remember that these three ideas are actually anchoring the message that is being put across by the author of Fathers of the Nations. Now, I am your presenter, Oyuga Z. Omolo. The first thing is to know what Agda stands for. And as I've said, it is Agency for Governance and Development in Africa. That is the first thing that you need to know. And Tad Longway is the director of Agda, in charge of special projects. And these special projects could be that some of the projects that are run by Agda in Africa. So you need to know that the director of Agda is Tad Longway. Number two is that Agda is actually the think tank. They use it as a think tank to turn around Africa. You also need to know that one of the missions of Agda is to question African status quo and whether there is the will to change, whether it will take the human approach to change Africa, or whether it will take the supernatural approach to change Africa. That is according to Tad Longway in one of his conversations. You also need to know that under Agda, there is a document that has been developed by the same organization, and that is Path Alpha. And Path Alpha actually has a mission, and the mission or the motto of Path Alpha is to harness the civic discontent in Africa into will to change. So these are some of the elements that you need to know about the background of Agda. Actually, the motto of Path Alpha, which is actually a subset of Agda, is mobilizing civic discontent in Africa and changing them into the will to change. So it is important to have that background even as we begin to discuss Agda and Path Alpha. They are connected. So that's why I'm trying to connect them even as I do my presentation. Now, Agda is trying to recruit a certain discontented Africans and turning them or bringing them to change Africa. And to be a member of Path Alpha, of course they call them the travelers. They don't want to call them recruits. They would prefer to call them travelers. You must believe in Path Alpha. That is number one. Number two, you must be an idealist. Number three, you must have the drive to pursue goals and the tenacity to stick with those goals. And therefore, when we talk about the Path Alpha 4, these observers that were taken to the summit, all of them, then we would want to believe that there are idealists. We would want to believe that there are people who can pursue goals and have the tenacity to stick to those goals. And they are also believers in Path Alpha. So that background is important even as we begin to discuss Agda. Also, I would want to bring to your attention that Agda in a way is connected to Mark Thatcher. because you are told in a story that Tad Longwe was sharing with Professor Karanja Kimani, that Mark Thatcher actually recruited soldiers, and they didn't want to call them soldiers but missionaries, and these people or the soldiers were supposed to wage a coup against the government of Equatorial Guinea. So there is a way in which Agda is connected to Mark Thatcher. And when this was discovered by the government of South Africa, because remember that Mark Thatcher lives in South Africa, he was arrested, and having been arrested, was sentenced to 4-year jail, but he never took the 4 years, actually was released. And after his release, if you try to connect the story of Agda and Mark Thatcher, they realized could be that the path that they were taking was the wrong path. And therefore, they are now using a very silent path. And this is where Agda comes in to influence the activities in Africa. So there is a way in which silently the author is trying to connect Mark Thatcher to Agda and also to Path Alpha. So those connections you must get, they are insinuated as you continue to read the book. Now, Agda therefore represents neocolonialism in my view. It is a silent hand, the hidden silent hand that manipulates what happens in Africa, so that anytime Africans have their agenda, they also bring their own agenda, but the agenda is silently brought to Africans. So it represents neocolonialism, of how the West is trying to push its agenda to Africa. Tad Longwe believes that Agda and Path Alpha can deal with the current new arrival problems of Africa, and that is corruption and impunity. And he talks about it, that previously Africa had 3 problems that they wanted to deal with, and that was disease, poverty, but so far 2 have been added, and that is impunity and corruption. So I would like to pick those 3 that African president at independence wanted to deal with as themes: poverty, ignorance, and all that has been said. So we add 2 to them: corruption and impunity. Path Alpha and like Omega is bottom-led, that is according to Tad Longwe, and as a will for implementation. So they have the will to implement the agenda, while Way Omega, which is a rival document, actually is very rich in ideas, but poor when it comes to implementation. At this document, that is Path Alpha connected to Agda, has got certain things that, or certain programs that need to be implemented to change Africa. And that is why they are talking about bringing what we call the discontent in Africa and turning that discontent into what they call the will to change. So the theme of change also comes up when you understand the story of Path Alpha. Now, having said that and having given the history of Agda and Path Alpha, I would also like, on the flip side, to talk about Way Omega and how Way Omega rivals Path Alpha. Now, Way Omega was developed by Nobel laureates, 20 of them, and they believed that this was the best strategy to develop Africa. Thereafter, the document was read through by the ministers of planning in Africa, to see if it is a good agenda for Africa and if it could be implemented. And having gone through it, they recommended it to the presidents of Africa. So that is why we have a summit now to discuss the document. And the document that is the agenda of the summit is not Path Alpha, but Way Omega. Unfortunately, Agda has actually brought in the two documents, Path Alpha and Way Omega, and they have recruited some 4 people. These are discontented Africans that are very knowledgeable to sneak in Way Omega, because they have poked holes on, to sneak in Path Alpha, because they have poked holes on Way Omega. And that is what is happening. Now, they have recruited also Dr. Afolabi Abiola to coordinate the 4 Path Alpha observers. And these are the people who are going to argue against Way Omega, so that at the summit, Path Alpha takes the day while Way Omega does not see the light of day. And that is the role of Afolabi Abiola, coordinating the 4 Path Alpha observers. Now, this is important, and you needed to know the connection, because if you don't understand the role of Agda, if you don't understand the role of Path Alpha and Way Omega, you may not understand the text. Now, what are the reasons why Way Omega has been developed? One, it is to rid Africa of what they call rigged elections, several coups, and foul play. Those are the reasons why Way Omega document has been developed. But again, something funny happens, that African presidents have met at the summit to discuss Way Omega, but they have ended up not even discussing it. Unfortunately, they don't even know the content of the document, because many of them have not read that document. And because maybe TAD is aware of the weakness of African presidents, they don't like things that bring development to their people, and they are just enjoying power, and they are doing nothing much to help the people. It was now very easy to sneak in Path Alpha as a document. And finally, what has happened? It is Path Alpha that has actually gone through at the summit, in a very chaotic summit that did not even discuss the agenda that brought them to that summit. So I needed to make some clarifications on Path Alpha, Way Omega, and Agda, and the connections of the 3 for you to understand the book, that is Fathers of a Nation. Thank you very much. We want to appreciate the fact that you have been watching our YouTube channel, and we still want to appeal to you to subscribe to our channel and enjoy the presentations that we bring along. May God bless you abundantly as we continue to demystify Fathers of Nations by Paul B. Vita.